Welcome to the Dreamlands. We are continuing on with my ongoing series of strategy guide and build order tutorial videos for Homeworld Deserts of Kharak. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at a pretty neat Soban build order. This is going to be the Gunship Rush. So this is a straight up tech rush build. You are rushing out a higher tiered unit as quickly as possible, and you are using that one unit to cause as much damage as possible within a small window of opportunity where your opponent will not have an answer for it. They will be totally unprepared. Now, a couple of things I want to mention before we get in. This build is a bit risky, so you do have to play quite careful, especially in the opening moments of the game. But I'm going to detail exactly how you want to scout and what you're looking for in order to maximize the efficiency of this build. And the other thing is that, yes, primarily you're basically just doing a tech rush and trying to cause as much damage as possible before your opponent can answer your tech. But I think this build has another real strength to it, and in fact, even a greater strength than the amount of damage that you can cause with it is how it's going to affect your opponent's play. Now, every person that you're going to face as an opponent is going to come into the game with a plan. Whether that be a very specific build order, a timing they're shooting for, perhaps just a favored unit composition, or even a broader strategy, they have a plan, they have an idea of what they want to do. And that idea is not going to include a gunship in the first few minutes of the game. I can almost guarantee that. So really the main strength of this game is how it's going to, this build order is how it's going to take your opponent's plan and flip it upside down. And it's going to really mess with their game, because it's going to force them to invest in very expensive anti-air tech and expensive anti-air units. And it's a threat. Right from the first time they see it, it's a threat to everything that they have. So it's really, really going to impact the way that they play. And I think builds like this that kind of get in your opponent's head and psych them out a bit can be very, very effective and very fun, as a matter of fact. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. We're going to get into this. Now, after we execute the opening build, after we hit with our gunship, we're going to transition out of that into more of a standard Soban playstyle. Now, this video won't go on long enough for me to showcase a lot of late game Soban play. I will do that in another video in the future, but we're going to transition out of our gunship into a very railgun heavy build that relies on our railguns and armed logistics modules. So really the essence of the Soban playstyle. So it's going to be pretty cool to showcase that. And one more quick thing I wanted to mention is that, yes, I'm showing this as a Soban build order because I really like how it synergizes with the Soban faction. However, it's equally viable to use this exact build as the Coalition. You're going to play it slightly differently at the start, and I will detail that as we get into the video. And likewise, the previous two Coalition build orders that I have posted on my channel, the Support Cruiser First Economic build and the AAV Rush into Strike Fighter build, both of those are equally valid for use with the Soban faction as well, and equally effective. So feel free, for the most part, outside of builds that are going to focus heavily on armed logistics or turrets, you can pretty much use most build orders with very little variance between the Coalition and Soban factions. Because like through the early and mid part of the game, unless you're relying heavily on a very specific strength of that faction alone, you can play it out pretty similarly between both of those factions. And I just wanted to make that pretty clear before we jump into this game here. But enough babbling on, let's get into this. Now, right as we're getting in, I want to credit Empty Soul. Not only for helping me make this video, so a big shout out to him for that, but also I want to credit him with really refining this build order. I can't say that he was the first person ever to use it, but he is the person that uses it the most and has been able to refine it and make it super efficient and teach it to me. So big shout out, big thanks to Empty Soul for being an awesome dude. And let's jump right into the replay here. Pardon me. This is going to be on the Boneyard. This isn't a build that's map specific. You can use it on any map, and it's equally effective. I just chose this map because I haven't had it on my channel in quite some time. So, and it is a pretty cool map. I do like the look of it. Alright, right before this game gets underway, we are going to pause it real quick. You guys know the routine if you've seen the previous videos. I'm not revealing the map. I'm not going to have any tabs open in the replay because I want this to represent as accurately as possible what you're going to see in the game for the purpose of education. Now, this is a tech rush build. So, this is where it differs greatly from the majority of other builds, is that your first 4 starting salvagers, 2 of them are going to go directly onto RUs. This is going to shave off 30 seconds of your build time and allow you to get that gunship much faster. So 2 salvagers in the opening moments onto RUs and 2 onto CUs. Now a little trick that you can do is just grab all 4 and just click on RUs, because it'll only take 2. 2 of them will go to RUs, 2 of them will automatically rally to the CUs. So go ahead and get that underway. Now queue up 2 salvagers with your carrier and rally them onto CUs. And I'm going to recycle my base runner. Now you don't have to do this, but this is a tech rush build, so you're slightly vulnerable in the opening moments of the game. And in those situations, I like to recycle my base runner in case I need to build more units than I really wanted to. I'll get that extra little resource boost. So 2 salvagers onto CUs, hit LAV fabrication as soon as you have 300, and then queue up 2 more salvagers and send them onto your next wreck bulkhead, open that up and get the mining on CUs. By the time those 2 are finished, LAV fabrication will be done. So what you gotta do is queue up 2 LAVs, rally them out somewhere in front of your carrier. You can see I just set the rally point there, and then fan them out, 1 to the left and 1 to the right. You're just gonna scout with them. That's all you're gonna do. And then queue up 2 more salvagers and hit them onto the RUs at your next mining location. Turn and face your carrier, just like I showed in the last Galcian video, so its butt is right on top of the resources and its nose is facing your next resource location. That cuts down on mining time a little bit. Just going to pause it real quick here. So now you have 6 salvagers on your main resource location. You have 2 LAVs, you're sending them out to scout, and you're about to have 4 salvagers on your closest expansion site. So you now have fully saturated 2 resource locations. You are going to queue up 2 more LAVs, so that's a total of 4. Now 4 is the ideal number. If you can get away with only making 4 LAVs, then do so. Now this is not going to always be the case, because like I said, as a tech rush build, you are going to be vulnerable to very heavy early game aggression. So it's crucial to get your starting LAVs to fan out across the map and do some scouting. Now what you're looking for is aggression, okay? Now you need to get a sense of where your opponent is and the unit count that they have, okay? And if you see a large number of units, it's going to delay your gunship wreck, okay? But if you can get away with it, just build 4 LAVs, and the moment you have enough resources, 500 CU, 200 RU, grab fighter and gunship fabrication. You can see I'm already like a few seconds late on that. There we go. Because that takes 70 seconds, that research. So you want to get it as quickly as possible. And the moment it's finished, build a gunship. Okay, and what you're going to do is you are going to send your gunship directly after your opponent's resources at their starting location. I've spotted the enemy, and I just need to get a count on how many light vehicles they have. I don't know if this is a production cruiser and if this is going to be a full-out rush, so I need to get a count, because that's going to tell me if they're full-on rushing me or if they're just harassing me and trying to tech up. So as you can see, the enemy moves in. This is obviously only a scouting force, so I don't need to worry about it too much, and that's perfect. Okay, if your enemy is teching up, they're playing right into your hands, and that's exactly what you want to see. I'm just going to pause it real quick here. If you see more sand skimmers than you have LAVs, produce more LAVs. I mean, this build is a tech rush. You want to get a gunship out as quickly as possible, but don't die before you can do that, right? So if you're under a ton of pressure, build more LAVs, as many as you need to hold your opponent off. Now this is why I love this build of Soban so much, because with the Soban armed logistics modules, you can get away with fighting with a lot less units than your opponent has. So you can get away with the minimum possible number of units that you need, provided you stay within the range of your armed logistics modules. In the early part of the game, never go outside the range of your armed logistics modules. Stay inside at all times, and your opponent will have a very difficult time pushing in, and that will allow you to get the gunship out much faster. Now, if you were the coalition, you would want to not recycle your base runner, and instead use that base runner to put down a turret somewhere where the enemy is pressuring you. And that will be pretty much the same kind of thing. Like, armed logistics modules cost as much as turrets, so it's basically the same resource investment. Slightly less effective in my opinion, because, well, I shouldn't say that. They're just as effective. They're in fact far more damaging, but they don't give you that long-term benefit that the armed logistics modules are going to, in my opinion. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that real quick. So in about 10 more seconds, my fighter and gunship fabrication is going to be finished, and I'm immediately going to produce a gunship. And as I mentioned before, I'm immediately going to send it right at my enemy's salvagers. Now the opponent has spotted that we don't have many units, so they probably think we're trying to go economy or some kind of tech like AAVs or railguns. They don't know what it is, but they're not going to suspect gunship unless they're familiar with this build and unless you use it a lot. So again, just use your LAVs and your armed logistics modules to hold off the enemy aggression while you get that gunship out. My gunship is being produced. It is almost done. Now, as soon as the gunship is done, we're going to create a support cruiser. Because you know what I've said a million times, I'm going to say it again right now: expand while you're attacking. So we are going to build a support cruiser and launch our gunship. Our gunship's target is the enemy resource locations. Now, you have two options here, okay? You have two options. I'm just going to pause it real quick once more. Ready. You have two options, okay? You're either going to have to use your gunship to attack enemy units, and if something goes south in the early part of the game and you're being overrun by strike craft, go ahead and use your gunship, and your gunship will be able to decimate all of the enemy's strike craft with ease. However, ideally you're going to want to hit their economy instead. So if you're able to hold them off as best you can with your LAVs and your turrets or armed logistics modules or whatever, and then send your gunship right at their resourcing. Let's check this guy out. These are so sick, man. Seriously, I love gunships.
Enemy sighted.
They're just bloody awesome. Alright, so once you see your opponent's resourcing, try and target the middle salvager. Okay? Now, a single gunship is going to be able to clean up the entire 6 salvagers on your opponent's starting resource location, and that is a massive, massive hit to their economy. So we are following that up by expanding our own economy and transitioning into railgun fabrication. Now, the beauty of this build is that you've just done a massive amount of damage to their economy. You've set them far behind, and you've also forced them to invest in very expensive tech. They're going to have to research either missile ships or interceptors and use them as anti-air. But both of those tech paths, and indeed both of those units, are very expensive. So that's going to set them back even more, which is great. So now what we want to do, we've done our damage, we're going to transition into a very railgun-centric build order. So from this point onwards, grab carrier, production upgrade, and just begin pumping out railguns, LAVs, and upgrades for your railguns and upgrades for your LAVs. When you can, get power reserves as well and pump out a couple base runners. You'll see me do this shortly to grab a couple artifacts and increase your power yet further. Now, this is one thing that I wanted to mention about the Soban. If you're playing Soban, you are putting all of your power into armed logistics. If you're not doing that, you're not playing Soban. Armed logistics modules are the biggest strength of the faction. You need to produce logistics modules to increase your supply count, so you're already going to have to build them. Now the beauty of the Soban armed logistics is that they are weaponized, so they can shoot a small blast of energy that stuns units and does a very small amount of damage. Now the stun is the real strength of them, and as you shunt power into your defensive logistics system, each level will increase the range, rate of fire, and damage of the attack from the ALMs. After you get past level 3, they become basically an unmanageable problem for your opponent, as they can begin to start having the ability to do actual damage and chain stun. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Like, sometimes I see players who try and weaponize their carrier as the Soban, and that is not effective whatsoever. I mean, there are a very small number of situations where that could be a valid thing to do, but 9 times out of 10 it's not. So really, if you're playing Soban, you want to play to the Soban faction, and relying heavily on armed logistics modules is basically the one and only Soban meta. You have to do it. And from this point onwards, the game is going to transition into a mostly standard style game. I'm just going to rely on a heavy number of LAVs, a heavy number of railguns, and my armed logistics modules to take all of the fights. And I'll use my gunship as support.
Roger that. Coordinates confirmed.
Now, you don't have to do this. Like most of my builds, I say this a lot. Once you've executed the build order, you've done the damage you needed to do, and you are now very much ahead, you can go ahead and play this however you want. You can go ahead and expand to a 3rd resource location. You can research cruisers or mass air or whatever the hell you want. The most important thing that I want you to take away from this video is the timing on getting that gunship out and what you want to do with it. After that, it's pretty much up to you. As I said before, for me, the chosen composition is going to be LAV and railgun. I've built a couple of base runners. Now those base runners are going to go ahead and grab a couple artifacts and bring them in, and I'm going to continue keeping the pressure on my enemy, because you have the advantage. And when you have the advantage, you don't want to let your opponent recover. Okay? Now we have a very clear economic advantage and a very clear military advantage as well, and our opponent knows it, so they're trying to be greedy in order to catch up with us. We can't let them do that at all. He's going to escape with this production cruiser, which is unfortunate. We have successfully shut down mining on that location, and we are protecting our 2 base runners as they deliver some artifacts. We're using our gunship to support our units. Now look at this. You've seen what a gunship can do to salvagers. Now look what a gunship can do to strike craft. Absolutely savage, man. This gunship is just going to maul all of these LAVs. And so it's a very, very good unit to use to support your railguns, actually.
It's a straight shot. Go.
Hostile contact marked.
So we did lose a railgun. That's not a big deal. We are still very much in the lead, and from this point on, I'm just going to begin pumping out support cruisers and railguns. Now, since we're talking about the Soban faction, and we have a moment here, I want to talk about their railgun. Every single Soban video that you're going to see me make ever is going to have railguns as the backbone of their army. There's a couple of reasons for this. Let's just take a look at this railgun. Actually, it's pretty damn sick. So the Soban railguns differ quite a bit from their coalition counterparts. They have less damage per shot. I believe the coalition railgun is like 270, and the Soban is 165, I believe. So substantially less. However, they have a much higher rate of fire. So in fact, over time, the Soban railgun has higher DPS. They're also better at killing carriers and cruisers for that reason. Now the second thing that makes them really, really interesting is they actually start with 1 additional arm over the coalition railgun. So if you invest in railguns for the Soban, you want to invest in armor upgrades. Because with a couple of armor upgrades, the additional starting armor, and supported by support cruisers, Soban railguns can actually be surprisingly resilient. And with that resilience, they're going to stay in battle longer, and and therefore deliver more DPS over time. So I can't honestly think of a Soban build order that doesn't have railguns as the backbone of its military. And with good reason. Soban railguns are amazingly good.
Green line confirmed.
We're going to get to see some really cool action here. Unfortunately, my gunship is going to go down. That sucks. However, with the sheer number of salvagers and LAVs that it's killed, it's paid for itself several times over. So it was a very, very good trade in the game, right? Like over the course of the entire game, that gunship was very, very good. And now we're in a pretty dominant position. We've successfully shut down mining consistently on our enemy's third location. We are delivering artifacts unhindered, and we've consistently been able to do damage to the original mining location of our opponent. Now it's just a matter of delivering the killing blow. So yeah, this is essentially the build. If your opponent is able to recover a little bit more effectively in a real game that you're playing, or if you're weakened a little bit from some early aggression, don't worry about it. Just transition out of the gunship build into a standard playstyle, and it can do that quite effectively, because at the very least you're going to come out even. At the very, very least. You will have invested in some tech, and you will have done some damage. You'll be in a pretty good spot to transition out of it into an economy and a pretty standard build order.
Time to move. Green line confirmed.
We have new bearing on hostile
Now,
target.
and I don't really have much more to say about this build order at this point, to tell you the truth. So for the rest of this video, we're going to get to watch some epic combat. Let's follow these support cruisers. And we're, at this point, just about to start cleaning up the enemy. We've destroyed one of their production cruisers. This production cruiser is next. It is definitely going to go down in a few seconds here. And then we're going to move on to the enemy carrier.
Roger that. Coordinates
Hostile railgun destroyed.
So yeah, the essence of the build, I'll just reiterate. 2 of your starting salvagers on RUs, 2 on CUs, queue up 2 more into CUs, LAV fabrication, 2 more salvagers onto CUs at your expansion, 2 LAVs to scout, 2 more salvagers onto RUs at your expansion, 2 more LAVs, fighter and gunship fabrication, gunship, support cruiser, railguns. Whew. Sorry, I hope you could follow that, but give it a bit of practice and it's going to be pretty easy. And these epic Soban railguns on some high ground, they are going to just demolish this carrier really, really quickly. They also have the ability to mark target, which means you see how this one railgun has like a yellow shot? That's just painting the carrier. And that carrier is now going to take 26% increased damage from all attacks. So yeah, just another cool thing about the Soban. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and please let me know what you think in the comments. And of course, let me know if there's any strategies or build orders you'd like me to cover. The next week's episode is going to be a Knef aggressive build order. That's one of my favorite build orders in the game. And then after that, I'm going to do some rush defense videos, and we'll continue on with the series. But if there's anything you guys want to see, feel free to leave it in the comments, and I'll add it to the list. I have kind of a list going of build orders that I want to cover. So if you're having trouble with something, or you'd like to learn something that I haven't covered, let me know and I will make it happen. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time.